Like any skilled artisan, you, the video cameraman, must first and foremost know your tools. It's not our intention to influence your personal preference in equipment. It is our intention to keep pace with evolution of home video technology. So, keeping an eye to the future for these exclusive programs, VC2000 has specially designed its own prototype video camera with video recorder built into the camera chassis. Keep in mind, any video camera, when properly used, can give you exciting results, regardless of make or brand. Whatever camera you'll be using, the operational principles are pretty much the same. That's what your owner's manual is for. What we're after in this show is to turn your shooting into professional-looking video. The main purpose of the video camera is to turn the energy of light into an electronic signal. Light enters the camera lens from light reflected from the subject and strikes the video tube inside the camera. Now, up close, most high-quality cameras will provide a number of useful features, like a zoom lens, an automatic iris feature, a white balance control switch, an extendable boom microphone, and underneath, a threaded tripod mounting plate. Let's take a quick look at each of these features and see how, when properly used, they can give you professional-looking results. The zoom lens, truly a marvelous invention. It can give you a long shot, a medium shot, or close-up, all without changing your position or lenses. Here's how. First, zoom all the way in on your subject, as tight as you can get. Next, bring the focus in sharp. Now, your subject should be focused at any point in your zoom, from close-up to long shot. Keep in mind, the zoom lens is a good servant, but a bad master when overused. Our next camera feature is the automatic iris. It's measured in f-stops. Your automatic iris instantly adjusts your camera lens opening or aperture to let the proper amount of light into the camera. In a sense, it reads the light situation for you. Handy, automatic iris. However, strong backlighted scenes can fool the auto iris. If your camera has a special backlight control, you can easily compensate for the problem. If not, you can manually override it. The next camera feature is white balance, a camera function that lets your camera reference itself as to how white should read under prevailing conditions, and thus put all colors in proper perspective. Here is how it works. Merely aim your camera at a white surface under the existing light and flip the switch. It will automatically preset all other color temperature settings in the camera to balance. Remember, you need to reset your white balance each time you change from one lighting environment to another, both inside and out. Two last quick features, the extendable boom microphone here on top and the threaded tripod mounting plate underneath. The mic gives sound in the shooting environment and in sync with the program. We get to that in depth later. It's the tripod mount that's key at the moment. With practice, you can set up and level a tripod inside 30 seconds, and man, is it worth it. A nice steady frame, a smooth, professional-looking move, and just as important, it keeps your arms and back from wearing out on an all-day shoot. When a tripod isn't convenient, snuggle up to whatever's handy. A fence, a tree, or your assistant. If you need to move and shoot, try for at least a 3-point support system. Your shoulder, your hand grip, and the side of your head. You'd be amazed at what you can get. A video camera is a truly beautiful thing, and for what you've paid, you ought to protect it.
Don't ever point your camera at the sun. Pow! Instant burn. It can cause permanent damage to your camera tube. Do always keep the lens cap on when your camera is not in use.
Happy birthday to you.
Come on, back for it!
I now pronounce you man and wife, and you may kiss the bride.
There are various types of sounds that you will encounter in video production: dialogue, sound effects, wild or non-synchronous sound, and of course, music. The audio portions of your video recorder have excellent fidelity, so make use of them.
Sound. The succession of slight, rapid variations in air pressure that travel over a distance. Like a billiard ball, sound travels in a straight line until it hits something. The waves bounce off and continue in a straight line until they hit something else. Sound.
Sound waves are really variations in air pressure. These perfect ripples are picked up on a very sensitive transducer or electronic eardrum in a microphone. There, they're converted to electronic information, then relayed to the audio recording head in the camera recorder. The sound waves are transferred magnetically to the videotape and stored for playback by reversing the process we just went through. Not too much to it, really. If it is laid down right, good sound is clear and distinct. It doesn't sound like this. It has no fuzzy edges, there are no ragged sounds in it. Noises in the background are in their proper place. It's clean and sweet, and it's not that hard to get. The main cause of distortion or bad sound is simply overloading your system. Like people, machines have their limits. Know their limits, and you can control distortion. It all boils down to your recording volume. Sound professionals will tell you that the lower you keep your recording volume, the better. And that means keeping as close to your sound source as possible. When you start moving your mic away from your source, you're losing control and letting background sounds become louder and more obtrusive. Also, the type of sound you get partially depends on the type of microphone you use. Microphones are classified by the patterns in which they pick up sound. There are two kinds you'll be concerned with. This kind is called unidirectional. The unidirectional microphone is very selective. It gives you a pickup pattern of about 80 degrees. Sounds to the side and back are subdued. It's good for most general shooting situations you'll encounter. Unidirectional mics eliminate most unwanted extraneous sources that are present as you record. However, they oftentimes need to be close to the source and carefully aimed. Otherwise, the sound quality will deteriorate rapidly.
All right, players, lift the guns all the way up and out of the holders. Aim them down at the belly button on the bottom monkey.
This is known as being off mic. If your situation requires a not-so-selective pickup pattern, you'll want to look at using an omnidirectional microphone. The omnidirectional microphone is not selective. It features a pickup pattern of 360 degrees. It lets you pick up sounds equally well from all directions. It can also be small and compact, typically used as a lavalier or wireless mic. Keep in mind, it's important to use the correct microphone and correct placement to ensure the best sound quality in any shooting application. Let's look at some examples.
You ready?
Okay.
Let's
sing a
song
song.
for Mom.
Okay.
In situation one, you're shooting a simple sequence around the home. The sound will be adequate using the mic built into the camera. The camera mobility you need here is minimal, and you can stay close to your sound source.
Merrily, life is but a dream.
Situation two.
Of God in this company to join this young couple in the bonds of holy matrimony.
You want maximum camera flexibility, but under the circumstances, distinct sound from a single source is important. The ideal solution is to clip a wireless mic on your subject. Although the wireless is an omnidirectional mic, it's usually placed so close to the source of sound, little else is picked up. The wireless will get you good sound quality and let you shoot from any camera angle you desire.
Rule of thumb. Number 1. Do not place microphones so that sound can bounce into it from a flat, reflective surface. Number 2. Use the same microphone type for an entire sequence if possible. Number 3. Do not pan the microphone too fast. This creates noise.
For simplicity's sake, let's look at how light from one source can make a world of difference in what we feel simply by changing its position. Front lighting. It's flat, leaving uninteresting shadows to the side of the nose and face. Underlighting. We see unnatural shadows, leaving a sort of evil look, perhaps a touch of mystery. High side lighting. Aimed at 45 degrees to the subject, we see the classic look of portrait lighting. It comfortably models the face into a three-dimensional form. Top lighting. Shining directly down, deep shadows form under the eye sockets, nose, and chin. Again, a feeling of mystery and dominance. Side lighting. Splitting the subject in half, it highlights rugged masculine features or texture of fabric or skin. Side rear lighting. It yields an even more dramatic effect. With a slight shift further behind, we bring out the full shape of the subject in silhouette. Setting lights is nothing like it used to be. The camera eye today is sophisticated. It sees more with less light. And for your video setup, the classical three-point method for lighting is perfectly suited.
Key light, the sun, the spotlight, the main light source falling on your subject. Placement, just to the left or right of your immediate camera position. Key light.
According to the classic three-point system, your key is the first light to be set. It's positioned to one side of the camera and focused down at a 45-degree angle. This shortens the shadows that fall behind. The key light is the foundation for the rest of your lighting efforts. It illuminates the brightest area of your picture, and naturally, the eye of your viewer will head for it instinctively. Now the fill light.
Fill light. Softer, more diffused light, filling in the shadows created by the key light, leaving just enough shadow for a feeling of depth. Placement. The fill light is placed on the same plane as the camera lens, on the opposite side from your key light. Fill light.
Setting your fill light is easy. Its main job is to bring out detail in the shadows made by the key light. Let's see it again. Off, there is a heavy shadow. On, the shadow is softened. Too bright, and there's no shadow at all. That looks flat, uninteresting. Bring it down, and a pleasing mixture. Ideally, your fill light casts no shadows itself, only reduces the contrast of light and dark from the key. The final Hollywood touch in your lighting setup comes from the backlight.
Backlight, a spotlight from behind, pulls your subject out into the third dimension, defines it. Placement, directly opposite your camera position, behind your subject. Elevation, 45 degrees. Backlight.
The backlight is the third light to be set. It's also aimed down at 45 degrees. It complements the key light and fill light and brings me out from the background. See the rim effect around my shoulders and hair? Looks more lifelike. And that's the trick with lighting. You're working for an optical illusion, for the camera's eye. The backlight is usually about as strong as the fill light and not quite as strong as the key light. But so much for theory. Cut 'em. In a world heavily dependent on artificial light, there is often enough of it to shoot by. So before you set your lights, use your artistic eye. Scan the scene. You may avoid fussing with any equipment at all. You may be able to get a more natural and authentic feel with a minimum of effort. Realistic interior lighting generally follows a principle called source lighting, which simply suggests that what you're shooting appears to be lit from a source of light that you can see. A window, for example, a lamp, a fireplace, and so on. Or when no particular source is present, the light conveniently falls from above and in the middle of your shooting area. Another effective technique when shooting in close quarters is bounce lighting. By pointing a light at a wall or ceiling, you can maintain a natural, even-looking lighting effect with a minimum amount of effort. But a word of caution, reflected light will pick up the color of the walls and ceiling. Two problems: limited space and lighting subjects in motion. Let's take a look at how to handle them. In most locations, setting your key and fill lights should be no problem. Keep them close to the camera. Additional backlight and set lighting takes a little ingenuity. Try hiding lights behind furniture. You'll get some exciting effects. Another trick, pump light from outside of the room through a door or window. Set your lights high to cut down on shadow throw, and make sure to keep lights and stands out of your frame. The only way to light for subjects in motion is pre-planning. Know the move in advance. If need be, set up several places along the line of movement. Your camera should give you some latitude, but first and foremost, make it easy on yourself. Pick the angle that will give the most light to start with. The same goes for outdoor shooting. The challenges of lighting outside are much the same as indoors, except you have no ceiling and no places to hang lights. Using the sun as your key light, the three-point system can be employed using devices called reflectors, each taking a position similar to the lights in the studio. Reflectors are used to redirect sunlight into shadowed areas. This homemade job has aluminum foil on one side and a white card on the other. The soft reflector is used to fill the shade side of the face, giving off a diffused, softer glow. The hard reflector side casts a brilliant, penetrating beam, almost as bright as the sun itself. It's good for key light or backlight. No matter what type of reflector you use, it must be continually adjusted as the sun moves. When following motion outdoors, avoid shooting into a bright sky background or heavily backlit area. As you follow the action, they will cause loss of detail and color. There are 5 basic guidelines to help you compose your shots. Now, they are not hard and fast rules designed to limit your creative ability. Not every guideline applies to every situation, but they are a place to start, and learning to master their principles is where creative freedom begins. The first of the guidelines is simplicity. Don't complicate your shots by placing primary subjects against congested backgrounds, and don't try to have too much going on in the shot. Each scene should have a single, simple story to tell. Often, as in these examples, that may mean altering camera position, the size of the image, or, when possible, selecting the best background. Beware of the merger. Lines or objects that cut through your subject as though the two were merging are a common background problem. They not only distract the viewer, but mergers also accent the two-dimensional quality of video and just plain don't look good. Remember, keeping it simple is not always simple, but it is always important. Now, let's get to the most basic issue. You know the scene you want and the subject, but where do you position the subject in the frame? There's no end of choices. Anybody can tell that's wrong, that too, and even that doesn't seem quite right. Most people give up and figure if they put the subject right in the middle, they can't be too far off. And they're right. They aren't too far off. They're off just enough to lose the opportunity for truly good composition. The rule of thirds has been a standard guideline for composition since the ancient Greeks used it to proportion their statues and buildings. The world of photography and video has long since adapted the principle and found it just as useful as it was then. Mentally divide the frame into thirds. horizontally, and vertically. Then, simply position your subject where two of the lines cross. The point you choose depends on the feeling you're after, how the shot will relate to the next one, and the other elements you wish to include. Framing is another guideline of composition which can add appeal to your shots. Use your eye and look for frames within frames, like these. As you've seen with the first three guidelines, the most important function of composition is to direct the viewer's eye to the central story in each shot. The concept of leading lines is a handy device that takes care of that job in a most pleasing manner by leading the viewer to the subject. It's easy to make lines work for you, but you have to look. They come in all shapes and sizes.
Don't. Allow a line to cut a shot directly in the middle. Do. Remember, the best starting point for a line is usually the left-hand side, because our eyes are trained to read left to right.
Balance is an important consideration in any creative effort. In video composition, it can be broken down into two areas: the balance between the objects in the frame and the balance of light and color. Balancing objects in your shots doesn't necessarily mean equal weights. It simply means your frame needs to be rounded out and used well. These are the 5 rules of composition, but remember, they're only guidelines designed to be flexible, creative tools. Practice them, and they'll come as naturally as looking through your viewfinder. Another key to good composition is the camera angle. Angles have a great impact on making shots appear three-dimensional. Flat angles make the scene appear flat. With a slight change, you can give the shot depth as well as provide more visual information. Angles can also have a psychological impact on your viewer. For example, when the camera and the subject are on an equal level, your viewer will have a sense of equality with the subject. Make it higher, and the subject gets smaller and seemingly less important. Move to a lower angle, and the size and importance of the subject is magnified. No matter how simple the action, there is a potential story composed of simple actions and simple reactions. And along with each story, there is always a simple plot with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Telling a videotape story uses everything you've learned so far about setting up a shot and then goes a step further. It lets you put shots together into a sequence and sequences into a smooth and logical story. It's what's called continuity, and it's easy to learn when you begin at the beginning. As director, your responsibilities are many, but they come down to putting ideas and visuals together in a way that makes aesthetic sense. Your first responsibility is always your audience. Losing them is the worst thing a storyteller can do. It's all in your frame. Through it, the audience will view all story action, but remember, they're getting it secondhand. They're depending upon you. What you put in here is what they get. So think logically, and remember to tell a story. All story action breaks down into sequences. They're the basic units of storytelling. like paragraphs, really. And each sequence has 3 all-important elements, all vital to getting your story across. First, you establish the setting. Let your viewer get his bearings and orient him to the action that will follow. It's called the long shot. Next, you move in closer and set up the medium shot. Remember, your lens is the audience's eye. You've got to be thinking for them always. Of all the possibilities in the long shot, you've zeroed in on some specific action. The medium shot gets you down to business. And then, on to the payoff, the most expressive of the 3 basic continuity shots, the close-up. It holds the greatest viewer impact. It reveals the subject's thoughts and emotions. It's definitely your most important shot. But let's back up a minute. Notice between the wide shot, medium, and a close-up, the camera angle changes by at least 45 degrees. You should always try to move your camera by at least that far.
The general rule. The general rule of continuity states when shooting a sequence, be sure to change the size of the image, or change the angle, or both, in between every new shot. The general rule.
The general rule is a tough one to live up to, but there are a couple of other types of shots you can count on to get you through. They're called cut-ins and cutaways. Cut-ins are shots that cut into the central action. These are usually close-ups and focus the viewer's attention on central events. Cutaways, also referred to as reaction shots, are close-ups or medium shots that depart from the main action to show a related subject, a reaction to the central story or other action going on at the same time. Cut-ins and cutaways are valuable because they make your story more interesting, and on the practical level, they're shots you can use to cover yourself when you change angles. Being a director is easy when you get cooperation from your actors. With script in hand, you've got the world by the tail. You can turn an everyday event into a family epic with controlled action continuity as Dad washes the car. Camera, sound, lighting, composition, and directing a story. It's up to you to develop these skills. You've got the basics now. Remember, shooting should be fun for you and everyone you include in your productions. With the equipment that's available to the home video producer on today's market, you can realize most any concept you dream up. The sky's the limit.